Okay, welcome everyone. There's lots of seats in front of me here, so don't be shy. Come in from the edges. um, Thank you all for coming to visit me so late in the day. My name is Michelle Sandford, and I am a developer engagement lead for Microsoft in Australia. Lots of seats here at the front. Um, what I should start with is the warnings. I am originally from the UK, and we are a very sarcastic people. Then I have moved to Australia, and in Australia, we are even worse. So I know that in Norway you are a very nice, very gentle people. So I want to say up front, if I say stuff that is offensive, try to just say, "Ah, well, she's only a stupid English girl," and let it go. Also, I will just laugh at all my own jokes, so don't feel obliged to join in. The too long didn't read of this is, I'm going to teach you how to overcome your imposter syndrome using GitHub CoPilot. So if you have come here for anything else apart from that, now is the time to flee. However, I would remind you it is late in the day. You may as well just sit here, and then you'll be able to see Scott Hunter after me, and that will also be glorious. Okay, I'm going to start with a story. Or maybe I should start with how many people do not know what imposter syndrome is? Is there anyone? I realize that actually that question doesn't work because it could be that you are all really introvert and people are afraid to put up their hands. I should maybe test that. How many people are extroverts in this room? How many people are introverts? See, there were 5 people that put up their hands for extroverts. Then there were about 25 for introverts. The real introverts, of course, did not put up their hands at all. You are in the right place. This is a good room for you. You are welcome. Okay, so this is a story about me. I often get that response. Believe it or not, I consider myself to be very introvert, and a lot of other speakers consider themselves to be introvert as well. The reason we are public speakers is a bit of a life hack. We have discovered that if you go to a conference filled with thousands of people and you're an attendee, then there's a lot of pressure on you to walk around the room, to introduce yourself to people, to say something memorable, and that's hard, that's scary, right? Whereas if you are a speaker, you can stand on the stage, talk about the thing that you know all about, and then afterwards lots of people will come and talk to you and ask you questions about the thing that you already know about. So it's a, it's a way that we have come up with to get away from approaching strangers and trying to think of clever things to say. This is me at a conference about, I don't know, actually so many years ago, and I was super scared because there was going to be 400 or 500 people there, smaller than this one, and I knew that I needed to walk around the room and shake hands and meet people, and I didn't want to do it. I was really scared. So I thought what I would do is I would go early, I would stand on the edge of the room, and I would watch people come in and sort of, psych myself up for it. When I was there, I discovered another little trick that maybe I could do, and I thought, what I will do is I will look for someone that I know, talking to someone that I do not know, and then I will approach the person I know, and they will introduce me to the other one, and that will be easy. So with this plan in my mind, that's what I did, and walked up to a guy, and I said, "Hey, Pat," and he said, "Oh, Michelle. Let me introduce you to blah, blah. He is the CEO of the Department of the Big Government Things." I realized I had inadvertently walked up to the most important person in the room. And I didn't have a thought in my head. I was immediately panicking, thinking, what should I do? Can I run? Can I faint? My hands are starting to sweat, and I'm going to need to put it out, and he's going to touch that. Oh. Well, and just as all of these thoughts were coming in my head, and I was genuinely considering just fleeing or fainting or something, he leaned forward, and he took my hand and shook it, and he said, "You're Michelle Sandford. I follow you on LinkedIn. I love your articles." I was so relieved. This guy already knew who I was. He already knew what I thought. I didn't need to prove anything to him in those few seconds. He already liked me, and we could just skip to the part where we're drinking a beer and having a joke. LinkedIn, a free tool available on the internet, had worked in advance of me meeting him in person, and it had done a lot of work as my virtual envoy. Now, I'm not going to talk about LinkedIn today, although it is a marvelous tool, and I do have another talk where I talk about that you can find on my YouTube channel. But I am going to talk about that's the talk, so you can find that one on my YouTube channel. It actually remains one of the most popular conference talks I do today, so I do recommend it. It does teach you to establish credibility from a distance, influence by volume, and access all areas from the factory floor to the boardroom. But we are going to talk instead about my new technological friend, my AI bestie, that is GitHub CoPilot. And I'm going to talk about how that stopped me being afraid in so many other ways. Okay, how many of you here have suffered from imposter syndrome? So this many plus all the ones that are still too afraid to put up their hands. Good. I find that even if you don't think that you do suffer from it, there is nevertheless a voice in the back of your head that holds you back from opportunities. And sometimes you don't even notice it, but that voice, that is your imposter syndrome. So perhaps a colleague has said, do you want to go and in this meeting, do you want to be the one presenting? And you say, oh no, I shouldn't do it. I think that Steiner should do it instead of me. And, you know, there's no reason why Steiner should do it instead of you, apart from he's a lot more confident and he's always the one that jumps up. But if you always automatically say, no, it shouldn't be me, it should be him, then he's getting all of the glory and you are the one that ends up going to get the coffee or taking the minutes or doing something that you can very easily do without fear. Fear is in fact the thing that is the indicator that will make you aware of the fact that there is an opportunity in front of you. There is an opportunity for growth. There is something that you can do that will help you level up. So if you feel the fear, you should say yes. If you do not feel the fear, if you automatically think, yes, I can do that thing easily, then you should not do it. You should say no, give that thing away. Give away the boring things. Take the things that scare you. Take the things that challenge you. So, I don't know whether you know this, but there are 5 types of imposter syndrome, and I'm going to go through each of them and then show you some code and how I would use imposter syndrome to overcome that particular, how I would use GitHub CoPilot to overcome that particular type of imposter syndrome. So, let's look at them. So this first one, the expert, this type involves feeling like a fraud because you don't know everything there is to know about a subject or topic. Is there anyone that feels that one? Feel like you should know everything before you before you stand up at an event or before you speak up about something, which is like, it's a crazy thought that because especially when we work in technology, everything changes every night. Probably while we slept, Azure must have brought out about 50 extra features. So it's really impossible to know everything there is to know in a given field, but nevertheless, we tell ourselves that we should be able to do it. I have a friend, Lars Klint. Some of you might have seen him at this conference in previous years. The marvelous thing about Lars is, Lars has taught me a lot of things. I saw him speaking at Techorama, and he was talking about some Azure Vision cognitive services, and they were new services. And he encouraged the audience to shout out their questions, and he would answer them as they went along. Now, what happened was, as they shouted out their questions and as they asked him things, he did not know a single answer to any of those questions. And what he would do is he would write down the question that they had asked, put it on a piece of paper, and he would say, I don't know the answer to that right now, but I will come back to you on that. Now, it was a brand new topic, and it was new technology, so it's legitimate that he might not know all those answers. But as it went on, every question that people shouted out, he didn't know. But Lars was unbothered by this. He just continued to do his presentation, to show off what he could show, and encourage the questions. And I was in awe of how relaxed and calm he seemed when he was talking about it. And at the end, I went up to him and said, Lars, were you not horrified by the fact that you didn't know the answer to any of those questions? And he said, no, Michelle, what I have here on this piece of paper is the content for my next conference presentation. Everything they have asked me is what people want to know on this topic, and it will make a marvelous future presentation. What we did today was show off what I did know, and that was interesting in and of itself. And I just thought, this is a marvelous lesson for us all. What we are doing in our daily lives is a continuous learning experience. We shouldn't be afraid of that. We should lean into the fact that we can grow more, we can learn more. The things we do not know are opportunities. They aren't failures. So, that is the soft skills lesson, develop a growth mindset and embrace learning opportunities. Now let us look at GitHub CoPilot and how I use that. So what we've got here is a piece of code for a simple game of rock, paper, scissors. And I've embraced the fact that I don't know everything, so I have asked GitHub CoPilot chat to show me 10 different ways that I could write the function. So you can write that game in many different ways, and I said to it, show me 10 different ways. And you'll notice that it explains each of those functions, why it's done it this way, why it's done it that way, what it means. While I'm reading those things, I can understand and learn more about it. When GitHub CoPilot first came out, it didn't have that chat feature. It just had you could ask for certain things. And what I would do is I would ask for the 10 different ways to write the code, and then I would pick the code that was most like the code I would have written. So in fact, what I was getting was a way for me to code faster, but nevertheless in the same way as I had always coded. What we have from the moment that I have CoPilot chat is I can ask it about the code. So I can, from those 10 different samples, I can look for a piece of code that is cleaner, that is better, that is faster, that is more efficient than the code I would have written. And then I can ask it to explain that to me. And then, because I know that future me will not remember the explanation that I got from that code, I will ask it to verbosely comment the code so that future me will be able to remember why the code is like that. And in this way, it is teaching me to become more of an expert, to be a better coder today than I was yesterday, and to improve the way that I do my coding and not stick in the same restricted, do what you know kind of methodology. Now, in this sample, I've asked it like a bunch of things. I asked it, could it make the code any cleaner? Could it make the code any faster? Could it make the code any better? And each time it will give you different things that it can do. But there is no perfect way to code. The game of rock, paper, scissors can be coded in a million different ways, in a million different languages, and you can learn things from each of that. But there is no perfect way to do it. And the same with your imposter mindset. You cannot reach a point where you know you are perfect in your knowledge, when you know you are expert and you are unfailing. And if you do reach that point where you think that you are those things, you should go to your best friend and ask them to slap you, because that is a terrible mindset to have. There is no such place as I know it all. Okay, so the next one that we have is the perfectionist. My MVP baby. So I have a friend here speaking in another room. I think she spoke this morning. Her name is Layla. She is what I would describe as the perfectionist. And also, actually, Daniel told me he associates with this kind as well. And what it is there is no point in their work, in their presentations, in anything they do where they think, yes, this is good, this is fine, this is perfect. They're constantly asking for more feedback, trying to improve, trying to get better, and it's never good enough. That voice in their head is always saying, you could make this better. So she preps, she over-preps, she practices to her colleagues, to her family, her little children, to everyone around her, and, constantly trying to make it more perfect, and that is like a really good way to get your reassurance and to feel that you are better. But in fact, she is perfect, but she will never feel it, I think. So, what she does, seek feedback and support from others, is a really good way to overcome that form of imposter syndrome. Okay, then this one. What I've done here with this piece of code is I ask it, is there a better way to do this code? Could it be better? And GitHub CoPilot is very kind in that it says things like, well, the code is already very good. The code is already very functional. It's very clean. But if you wanted to make it better, you could do these things. And then it explains each of the things you could do to make it better, and what each of those things mean for the code. So you can put those in. You can discuss with it ways in which you could improve your code, and it will help you surface ideas that you might not have otherwise done. So, for example, I'm writing in Python there, and when I am doing it, if I implemented a bunch of things to write my code in an object-orientated way, it might not be the way that other people within the organization are doing their code. They might prefer a more functional format. They might prefer it to be more procedural. They might have other ideas. But none of those things are necessarily wrong. It doesn't make it more perfect for it to be one way than another. GitHub CoPilot is teaching me about each of those ways, and it's giving me the opportunity to put those in. But it's not, there is no perfect way, I guess. So I really like that I can get that reassurance of a pair programmer by discussing it with him, but it isn't right. It isn't more right than what I did originally. And you can absolutely do this with a human pair programmer, but there are scenarios where you might not have the confidence to do so. So, for example, if you're a junior developer and you go to your senior dev with all of your questions. When they are stressed, when they are busy, when they have a big project on, they are likely to snap at you and be very impatient and send you on your way. This isn't what you want for your junior developers. Then what tends to happen is they will go to Google or Stack Overflow, they will research different ways to do the code. They might spend several weeks researching something that in fact a senior dev could have answered for them in a few minutes, because they are then afraid to go back to the senior dev with stupid questions. GitHub CoPilot, of course, acts like a pair programmer to you. So your junior devs can ask all of those questions, can sort out all of those things in their mind, can clarify it all. And if they still don't know what is the right thing to do, they still don't understand what would make it approvable for the, what would let people approve that merge request, that pull request, they can go to the senior dev at that point and say, hey, I've thought about this, I've done this, I've thought about that, I've done that, but it's still not getting accepted. Can you explain it to me? Can you help me? And no senior dev is going to be annoyed by that at that point, because they have really done all of their research and they've really validated it all with the help of this lovely AI. I should say, it is giving me some Norwegian subtitles. Are they correct? Are you reading those? Yes, it's all good. That is PowerPoint that does that, and it's available within PowerPoint for free. You just turn that on, and you can say what your input language is and what your output language is, and it will just do it. So it's always a good option, especially if you are speaking to a room of people and you're going to get excited and start speaking quickly. Okay, the next one is the superperson. Superperson, how many of you have families? And children, young children? Right. And when you are at work, you have a lot of stuff on your plate. When you go home, you are tired, and your children want you to tell them a story, or they want you to play, or your wife or husband or partner is like, can you just do the washing up? Can you just put the children to bed? And you're tired after work, but they're also tired because they've been at work. And it feels like you have all of these things that you want to do, that you should be doing, that are your responsibility, and you're unable to juggle them all, and you feel like some sort of failure because you're not doing everything. And at work, we are developers. Well, are we developers? How many of you are developers? Oh, quite a lot. How many of you are infrastructure? Not many infrastructure people. And how many, I don't know, project managers? You are mostly developers, huh? Is there anyone else that's anything else you want to shout out? Obviously, an extrovert person needs to. Managers, do we have some managers? Mostly developers, though. Okay, cool. But do you remember in the olden days where we just coded? And we coded, and we would probably put our secrets and our keys in our code and commit them all. And that was all fine because somebody else would sort out the security and somebody else would test that. Do you remember that? Is it just me? But now, of course, we are encouraged to shift left. And that's right, I should step this way when I say shift left. Shift left. Do your testing earlier in the cycle. Do your security earlier in the cycle. But they never taught us that. We learnt to code. And coding is what we got into it for. And now all of a sudden, we are expected to do all of these other things as well. Do the testing, do the security, do the, well, even the infrastructure. You need to do a lot of that in order to just like stand up your stuff before you can even start coding. And they expect you to know all of that, and it's just like a hugely increased workload compared to what it used to be. The good news is in GitHub, these things can also be done for you. But before we get to GitHub, just on the soft skills side, I shouldn't say that, I should say core skills. These are the things that you should think about. Think about recognizing and challenging your negative thoughts, seeking feedback and support from others, celebrating your achievements and acknowledging your strengths, and seeking professional help if needed. When I say professional help, this can be not just, a therapist or a counselor. I think that the Americans have been doing this for a long time, and the rest of the world, we have been dismissive of that a lot. But it is something. Having someone to talk to, having someone you can share your concerns with that isn't your family, that isn't your friends, is a really positive thing to do for your mental health and well-being. But for this superperson's mentality, that's not the only person you can ask for help. Maybe you want to employ a cleaner to help clean around your house. Maybe you want to employ a tutor for your children. There are other people that you can get in to help you. Maybe it's just your parents. Maybe you're asking the grandparents to do some extra help for you. But don't be afraid to reach out to people around you and get extra help. But what can our little AI do for us? Oops, here we go. So actually here I am not even in GitHub CoPilot. I'm just in GitHub itself. And if you haven't had a look at it, there are a bunch in the settings. There are a bunch of security things that you can just turn on now. So it shouldn't be that you are committing your secrets and your keys in your code. If you have all of these things turned on, then it will automatically warn you about that. And when you go to do your pull request to commit your code, it will say, did you realize you've got your keys in your code? Now, you've got your keys in your code and you're not used to thinking about what to do for that. That is fine. You can then ask GitHub CoPilot to tell you how to do that. So I asked it the other day. I said, I've got some environment variables here. I just used a code sample and the environment variables were in the code. And I said to it, I want to change that so that they are not in the code. I want to put this on GitHub. Where do I put the environment variables? How do I do it? And how do I refactor the code so that it runs and it's not referencing the environment variables in the code as it originally was? And it just told me exactly how to do that. What I've also done there is I've said, can you write the tests for me? I don't know how to write a test file. I have never done that. I ask it to write the tests for me. It writes the test file for me, and then I just save that and run it. The tests did not run successfully. 2 out of the 3 tests ran, and the third one failed. And I asked it, why has the third one failed? Can you explain to me what I need to do in order to fix my code so that this test will pass? The temptation is then to then go even further and say, could there be more tests? Could there be more code coverage with these tests? And it will do that for you as well, but it would also warn you and say, it would be a bit excessive to have a higher code coverage with your tests for a game of rock, paper, scissors. You do not want it that running tests is actually more of a thing than running your code, So you want to balance these things out. But I like that I can discuss it with it. I like that it can explain it. I like that it will show me what we're doing. And actually within the GitHub part where I was turning on all of the secrets, there was a part where you needed to configure a YAML file in order to set one part of it up. I could just ask it to tell me how to set that up for this thing. And instead of spending all of that time switching out of GitHub and going to Google or Stack Overflow or something, I can stay in the code, I can stay in the moment, stay in the flow, and just ask it my questions and get my stuff done, which is cool. Then the next one, the natural genius. This is the type that involves feeling like a fraud because you don't believe that you are naturally intelligent or competent. Is there any of you that have tried to do something and you couldn't like pick it up straight away, and you just thought, I'm no good at this, I'm not going to do it. Remember when you were a kid as well? Like, or maybe you have kids and you take them to karate or something like that. Take them to some class, to football, to running or whatever. They try the thing and they come in last, or someone pushes them over or whatever, and they start crying and they say, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I'm no good at it. This is, it's such, like it's a natural response in us as children. I think it's an odd response in us as adults, but nevertheless, we have it. It's so natural that we want to say, I've tried it, I can't do it, I'm going to give up. But in fact, one thing that I like to remind people is that none of us ever walked out of the birth canal. It took 2 years to learn how to walk when you were little. It took 2 years to learn how to eat on your own. Walking and eating are really simple things that today anyone can do it. But if we had given up from the moment we were born, then we wouldn't be able to be functioning adults as we are today. And we should just give ourselves a little bit of a break, not be so hard on ourselves, not expect to be brilliant at things when we haven't even had any training. If there's something that you're trying to learn that is hard, like maybe you are learning a new language, or maybe you are moving from on-premises to cloud, and it's a whole new world, don't get upset because you don't get it right away. Try a little bit today until it hurts your brain, and then stop, and then try a little bit more tomorrow, and then keep doing that every day until you understand it really well, and you won't even remember a time where you found it hard. I think it's really, it's actually really insulting where you find someone and you say, oh, that guy, he's the best coder I know in Rust, he's so talented. I think that's actually a really big insult, because it's as if to say he just started coding and like magic he was good at it. It disregards the fact that that guy worked really, really hard to learn that language, that it was practice, that it was doing stuff, that it was building projects, that it was committing code. So you never see that. In this world, you just see our Instagram filtered lives, and it's easy to think it was nothing. So again, these are, you see a sort of pattern coming in for all of the ways that you can beat your imposter syndrome. Recognize and challenge your negative thoughts, celebrate your achievements and acknowledge your strengths, develop your growth mindset, and embrace your learning opportunities and seek help if needed. I do say, there's a little thing on GitHub that you could create every day called a brag doc. Now, I realize it is not in the Norwegian mentality to brag. No, none of you like to do that, right? You are modest and humble people. But brag doc on GitHub is you create a document, and each day you write down all of the things that you have achieved. You finished that project, you delivered that thing on time, you committed a piece of code that everyone was really impressed by. The things that you do, you write those into your brag doc and you commit those each day. At the end of the year, you have all of these memories, all of this documentation, which will remind you of how much you've gotten done. I say look at it on New Year's Eve, which is the saddest day of the year, where everyone thinks they didn't achieve anything this year and they think they have to join the gym. But instead, you could look at your brag docs and see all of the things that you did actually get done this year, and it will remind you that, in fact, you are doing really well and you're getting a lot of stuff done. If you'd prefer a more physical reminder, you can buy like a glass jar or a glass bottle, and you can write on the good things. You could write your achievements on colored Post-it notes and put them in this jar, and then on New Year's Eve, you take them all out and look at all the marvelous things you've done. That's a fun thing to do with your kids, I think. I don't have any kids, that's just me and my dogs doing that. Okay. So to beat this one, here I just asked my GitHub CoPilot to explain it to me as if I'm a new programmer. Do I need to install Python? Do I need to, if I'm doing it in CodeSpaces as opposed to Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, do I need to install something, or can I just do it up there? All of the questions that normally would delay me, I can just ask them in there and it will answer them for me. I don't need to be a natural genius. I don't need to know all the answers to the questions. Whatever it is that I do not know, I can ask it. In particular, you know, like when you, I don't know whether people still do it, but when you go to interviews for jobs, people do those coding interviews, and you can't access the internet, and you need to remember the algorithms, you need to remember the code snippets, you need to remember the way that you would solve problems. To me, that seems crazy, because we shouldn't be testing people for memory. We should be testing people for problem-solving ability. We should be looking at what do they do when they don't know what to do. So I think it's a it's a really good thing to help us, and I don't think it's cheating if we ask it to remind us how we do things. Okay, so this is our final one, the soloist. And this is the thing that I suffer from the most, I think. This type involves feeling like a fraud if you had to ask for help to reach a certain level or status. I always felt too embarrassed to ask for help. I always felt like my questions were stupid, and I felt that people around me would be both annoyed and disappointed by my questions, and so I tried to solve all of my problems on my own. I have a best friend, George, who is a security guy, and he always says, come to me, ask me for help. And a lot of the time, I will mostly solve as much as I can by myself before I go to him. And then he's super upset because he says, why didn't you come to me? Why did you solve this on your own? Don't you need me? Don't you like working with me? And it wasn't about him. For me, it's not about that. It's about me. I just don't want to feel like an idiot. And GitHub CoPilot really helps me to validate all of those things and to do it in a really quick way. But what really brought that home for me was my grad hire, Gia. Gia is, so she was a grad hire a few years ago, and when she goes into meetings, she is the first one to put up her hand. She always puts up her hand, she's always asking questions, and rather than making it look like she's stupid, it seems to me that she looks even smarter for all of these questions. And it makes me think, God, I wish I could think of all of those questions to ask, because I would be further along if I had thought of those questions and if I had learnt from them. I did have a I do have a story about Gia and Graham. And I'm going to show you a funny picture for that in a minute. But I'll come to that. So first of all, again, recognizing and challenging our negative thoughts, seeking feedback and support from others, and seeking professional help if needed. Okay, this one I really love in terms of a demo. So I simply said to it, create a REST API for me using something.js, Express.js, and MongoDB. I've never used MongoDB, I don't use Express.js, and it just creates the entire API for me, just like in seconds, which just seems like magic to me. And, you know, on the one hand, I am not advocating that you let GitHub CoPilot write all your code for you. You will absolutely not get the best code by getting that done. But there is plenty of boilerplate code that it can write for you, and it is a waste of time you learning how to do that because it's so standard it can just do that for you. But when you don't understand what's going on, you can then ask it to explain that to you. What does this mean? What do I need to change? What do I need to connect? What do I need to make different? And it will explain all of those things to you. Now, I do want to tell this story. This is a picture that I had the AI generate of Gia, my junior, and Graham, who's the senior. The odd thing about AI is it only wants to generate images of beautiful people. Because obviously, Graham is not quite this startlingly beautiful. The other problem is Gia, of course. In this picture, she looks like a child. And when AI is trying to generate images of Asian women, it really can only do very, very young or very, very old. And so I kept trying to make them older and older. But Graham didn't get any less startlingly beautiful, and Gia remained a child until she was suddenly an old woman. So it's an interesting thing. But my story about Gia and Graham is one day I had been trying to build a demo, and it's a demo I've built a million times before, and it kept going wrong on this day, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I said to Gia, can you see what is the problem with my code? This is before I had the CoPilot to validate my stupid problems. And Gia said, Michelle, why would you come to me? Why wouldn't you go to Graham? He's the senior dev. He would, know what the problem is. And I said, well, actually, I went to Graham yesterday. The problem is, Graham is exactly the same age as I am. Graham went to university in the same era that I did. He learned to code using the same books that I learned to code from. He learned to troubleshoot in exactly the same way. And when I showed my code to Graham, he went through the exact same set of troubleshooting steps that I have gone through 10 times today, and he couldn't see the problem. Please, Gia, look at my code and see what you can see. Gia's, I don't know, maybe 30 years younger than me. Is that right? Can I be that old? Yeah, I am that old. She looked at my code and she said, Michelle, there is a capital letter in your file path. It's a really simple, small problem, but neither Graham or I could see that problem, and we had looked at it over and over. And so what I want to say is having someone to validate your code, whether it's an AI, whether it's another person, it needs to be someone bringing a different perspective than what you have, and there is value in that diversity. There is value in that difference. So what you're looking for when you are building your teams of developers is try and add people to your team that are different than you, not ones that are the same as you. Because it's not, like, what's the point in having another one, another clone? It's better if, I don't know, you have someone young, you have someone old, you have people from different cultures, you have people from different genders. People who see the world differently will help you build better products because they will be more creative, they will be more imaginative, they will see more things than you can see. I kept trying to make Graham look more like an actual developer, so I was trying to get him to be older, him to be less fit. Not that he's unfit, but he's not this. But but this was really the extreme edge of the AI giving me Graham. So yeah, he's using that for his profile pic now. So yeah, those are my key points. Diversity of thought comes from seeing things that others do not see. It wasn't because I was a bad coder that I couldn't fix my code. It was just that sometimes you can't see it, and other people who think like you can't see it. So it's good to have other sources like GitHub CoPilot or like Gia. I'm not going to do that one. Not that one. So I have been talking about imposter syndrome, and I have been trying to say that GitHub CoPilot will solve all your problems. I hope I have also made clear that you cannot solve all your problems by going into a room by yourself and talking to your technology, that you do need to surround yourself by people, and ideally people that can help you, that will support you, that will give you good feedback, and that will be there for you. GitHub CoPilot is going to be able to do many things for you, but also you need those people at your back. 2023 and 2024 have been very hard for all of us in tech. Even though we have the AI to do all of our work for us, our higher ups have nevertheless been throwing more and more work at us, and the expectations continue to rise, and the work continues to get harder. Support each other, love each other, be a good community, be a good teammate, because I think it will get worse before it gets better. Do take advantage of the tools that you can to help you, but also turn to the people around you for that support. That is the summary of all of the soft skills that you need, but we've seen those a few times. I have here for you some resources, so if you would like to follow a learning path about GitHub CoPilot, you can do that there. When you go to the Microsoft Learn page, at the moment it will also have a banner across the top offering you the opportunity to join a challenge linked to Microsoft Build. There is an entire learning path in that Build challenge linked to GitHub CoPilot as well, which is next level. So it's not just the fundamentals, it's got all of the compliance, the privacy, the security, the enterprise level stuff in there. It's all about deploying to open source. It's all about inner source, if you have that within your organization as well. So it's really got a lot of interesting stuff there. The Imposter's Handbook is a really cool one if you haven't read it. I think it's on a 2nd edition now. And wait, I think I might not, I have not got the, hang on. I do have another thing to give you. Give me 2 seconds and I will find where that is. That's the correct one. Oh. But this is if you want to connect to me. I would love it if you would connect to me on LinkedIn. Let's be best friends. Don't just follow. Click on the 3 dots and be my proper friend. I also have a YouTube channel with a bunch of things on there. But this is the thing that I want to give you. It's not related to GitHub CoPilot, but there is a lot of generative AI being the hot topic at the moment. You might not have the opportunity to use Azure OpenAI yourselves because maybe your company hasn't got it and you're not able to get it in some other way. This is a playground that we've set up so you don't need an Azure OpenAI subscription yourself. You don't need to use your own subscription to follow these workshops. You can follow there's 2 workshops in there, one on prompt engineering and one on RAG. So it will give you an opportunity to learn about OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, to learn about prompt engineering, to learn about RAG, and without having your own subscription. And I'll leave it open until end of July. And so I hope you enjoy it. The smaller link is just me in a video showing you how to connect to that playground in case it's not super obvious. My colleague tells me it is super obvious, but I made the video anyway. And the voice that you hear in that video is not me speaking. It is a custom neural voice that I made of my voice. So it is an AI speaking in my voice, explaining how to do the thing. So that's pretty cool as well. Anyway, thank you all for sticking with me. And I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have enjoyed being with you.